Hello, welcome back to the channel, Vintage Fishing Reel Rescue. This is a channel dedicated to the education and servicing of vintage fishing reels, getting them back in service after some time being out of service, or just servicing ones that are frequently used. Today on the bench we have this Shakespeare Sigma Supra long cast. It is a 40 size rear drag fishing reel. Seems to be in decent shape. The string is stopping it from going all the way around. Hearing a little bit of noise. Let's see. Drag's loose there. Taking the drag down. Drag seems to be working. Anti-reverse release works. Reverse lockout's working. It seems to be in working order. A little bit of dirt on it, but somewhere. Well, let's dive into this and get this one serviced and back out on the water. I'm going to start by removing the external components. This one here, you push this button in the center of the spool to take the spool off. Just slides right off. Quite a bit of dirt, different things into there, under here. Almost looks like a cobweb right there, like a little spider lived in here for a short time. Move that. Get out some. Next we'll remove the handle. This one turns off. You want to turn it the opposite direction of retrieval. It removes the handle. Seeing some corrosion down in there. That's an aluminum part, so that's not very good. You can remove this drag knob here. You start by removing this screw on the back side of it here. I remove the screw. Get my parts trays out. Set the screw in that. Now what you do to get the knob off, some of them pull off like that one there does. Some of them you have to spin it off. This one has a clip here. You can see it's rusted. There's a clip here that holds the drag stack in. So let's see if we can get that clip to come out without losing it or breaking it. It is a spring clip. It is under pressure, so you want to be careful. Don't go flying out, lose it, or worse yet, hit you in the eye or something. See if I can dig it out with a pick here. Yep, it's starting to come out. It's starting to move. Some of these can be a real bugger to get. Once I get it started, I can go in there with a flat screwdriver and finish getting it off. Stick that in my thread. Should be able to pull that out, I believe. Maybe this one spins out. Yeah. This one's going to spin out. I never know. Some of them spin out, some of them pull out when you remove that clip. They vary depending on the manufacturer. You can see there's a washer there that goes behind that clip. Seeing quite a bit of corrosion on this piece here. As you can see it. This reel's been abused and neglected, I'm sure. That's probably what I've seen so far. It's probably been left out in the weather or dunked in the water and not rinsed or cleaned. This is just a freshwater reel. It's one of the couple of washers here that go on top of the spring. This does have a coil spring inside. Pull the coil spring out. Not sure if this one pulls out or spins out like the other. Yep, this one pulls out. Here's our drag stack. There's quite a bit of dirt in here also, so we'll get this all cleaned up. Take it apart one at a time. We have an eared washer here. Then there should be a fiber. The fiber seems to be stuck to the eared washer. There we are. Put them in order here how they come out. I'm going to put them in the direction they go also. The ears were facing up on that. This one should be a keyed washer next. It is also metal because you go metal, fiber, metal. Yep, that is a keyed washer. You can see that it's not just a circle or a round opening. It is flat on two sides to match the piece that it sits on. Next would be a fiber. Not stuck to the metal one again, so we're gonna bring those two together. There we go, we got the fiber one off of it, and then the metal washer, and then this piece here. There is a fiber washer back here as like a bushing on the back side of this. Get that off of there if I can without damaging it. There we go. Alright, I get my stiff wire brush, or well, this is a plastic one. Kind of clean this piece up, get as much of that corrosion off of it as I can. Then we'll get these drag washers cleaned up, lubricated, reassembled, and then we'll set this off to the side while I do the rest of the reel. Okay, I've got that piece cleaned up. Now we'll take the same brush. I'm going to hit all my washers just lightly. They're not super dirty. They were just kind of stuck together, but just get it tarnish and dirt and such off in them a little bit. Fiber washers are quite dry. They are just a fiber. They're nothing special. Like they're not Teflon or I'm sorry, I can't think of the other word. That's okay. All right, I'm gonna start reassembling this. All right, we had the metal on the bottom. This was the eared washer, and then we have a fiber washer. I'm going to put just a drop of oil in between each. That'll help keep them from sticking to each other. And also help soften them fiber washers a little bit. Carbon fiber, that's the other type of drag washer I was thinking of. Now we have our metal washer, a couple of drops of oil on that. Don't need a lot, just a little bit, just enough, because it'll spread around. And put our fiber on, a little bit of oil on the fiber, and our last metal washer that sat on top. That was the other eared washer, and the key one was in the center, and we have our fiber washer here. Let's see if that'll stay on there. I'm going to just set this off. This goes underneath the coil spring. I'm going to clean that coil spring up, get some corrosion on that. This is going to be quite a bit of cleanup by the looks of it. A lot of corrosion and debris, dirt, sand, everything in this one. So I'm going to set that way. That way I remember how it goes. And then these two There's these 3 brass washers actually set on top of the spring. Then we have our clip. There we are. Alright, the axle shaft's going to have to come out before the spool. That drag is quite stiff. It is moving. I'm going to lubricate that a little bit right now to try to help get it moving again. Maybe actually I'm seeing some rust, so I'm going to actually end up tearing that apart. So I'm going to wait on lubricating that. So let's get the side cover off here. We'll get the axle shaft removed and get the rotor off of there, and then we can service the rest of this reel. There's 3 screws in this side cover. I'm going to lay these out just so I can compare them, make sure they're all the same length, same thread type. You don't want to put a long screw into a short hole. You end up going right through the other side and damaging your case or your reel, wherever the screw happens to fit into. This is a plastic or graphite case. Get these screws out of here. Pull this side cover off. That rotor is going to have to, maybe not, there we go, it's coming. Looked like it was tucked slightly under the rotor, but there's enough room to get it to come out of there. I like to try to leave the main gear in the body so I can look to see if there's anything that needs lined up when that gets reinstalled. There's a clicker there. And here's not super dirty. The grease, as you can see, is definitely drying up and getting tacky, where it's not really lubricating very well any longer. This one does not have a bearing on this main shaft. It does have a bushing which is stuck onto the shaft with the corrosion. I don't know if you can see that corrosion very good. We'll get that all cleaned up. See if we can get this main shaft to come out. Yep, comes out without removing the axle shaft. This one does have this spring that operates the reverse lockout lever. So you got to remember to line that up. I don't know if you can see this groove right here. That's where that spring goes. And when you go to reverse, it will push down the lever, locking the reverse in. And when you turn it the right way, retrieving, then it pushes the lever this way and allows the rotor to spin freely. This is the reverse override. Right now it is in the reverse lockout position. If you slide that lever up, then it overrides the reverse lockout and you're able to turn the reel backwards. Alright, let's get this corrosion cleaned up off of here so I can get this bushing off. That way we can get everything cleaned up and lubricated. Kitchen scrubby, I like to use these. They're a little bit of abrasion, but they're not really enough to damage anything. So use that to clean that corrosion off of there, and that'll get it off without having damage done to the main gear shaft here. Alright, polish that shaft up pretty nice. Feels like there's a burr on the edge of that shaft. I can kind of see it. See if the bearing bushing's not coming off. So I'm going to grab a small file and take that edge off. I have this little file set to hit that burr a little bit. These burrs on these edges of this is an aluminum gear, main gear, and what happens is when you over tighten the handle, it'll put a burr on there and kind of mash the end or mushroom the end of that a little bit. So that's how that happens. It can't even happen from fighting the fish, because if you have a large, or quite a large fish on there while you're fighting it, it can actually force the handle tighter, so and cause this same issue. Trying not to hit the down in here very much. I don't want to cause play. There we go. There's the bushing right off of it. I don't want to cause play in the bushing. This one has a couple of brass washers on the shaft between the bushing and the main gear. I want to make sure them get back in place. Now I can take and clean this up. I'm going to grab myself a Q-tip here to get that old grease out of there. I like to keep these in the old medicine bottle. Keeps them clean and organized. They ain't falling all over and ain't getting all dusty and dirty. Clean as much of this old grease out of here as you can. Take my paper towel and kind of try to get the rest of it. I want to try not to knock that reverse lockout spring out. This will come off of here. I'm not going to take it off, but that does come off. It does rotate, you know, it does stay stable and the gear's still able to rotate. That is a point you want to lubricate. I like to put a little bit of oil on that because that is a wear point. It's always staying, you know, there's always movement there. It's a contact point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple drops of oil onto that just to keep it from wearing. That spring can break if it wears too much, or it can ruin the main gear. But I'm going to lubricate on reassembly. So right now I'm going to set this off to the side. We'll get the screw out of our main shaft, or our axle shaft, I'm sorry. Get the axle shaft out. This screw in this T-block holds the axle shaft in, so we need to remove that screw. That screw is quite tiny, so you want to be careful not to lose it. Or drop it into the case. There we go. Put that in my parts tray. Now the axle shaft should pull out. There is this metal clip right on top of the T-block. Pull this metal clip out. Like that. I'll slide that in my parts tray. Now the axle shaft should pull out. You can see these two grooves. That's where that metal clip locks into to keep this locked to the T-block. This is quite dirty. As you can see, there's quite a bit of debris and old stuff in there. So let's get this wiped off. I like to roll these on the bench when I can. This one has this pin here, so it's not going to roll on the bench, just to try to see if it's bent or not. You can tell sometimes by looking, sometimes you can't, depending if the spool's set and tilted a little bit or there's a binding. Okay, now this, oops, I dropped the T-block out. Maybe I'll finish cleaning that up first, clean the interior, and then we'll pull that spool off. Get the main gear out. I do not know if there's a bearing on this main gear. I'm suspecting there is. I didn't really read the body on it to see if it said there was bearings. Yep, this does have bearings, so that's going to be the only position of the bearing is on this rotor. So let's pull this gear out. I don't see any washers there. And we'll rip this off, put this over in our parts tray. Set that there. Okay, we want to pull this screw here out. Actually, I don't think I need to get that nut off. That doesn't even contact that nut. Let's see here. Yeah, that nut's coming off easily. This is a brass nut, so it's a good idea to use a correct fitting size socket on there if you have one, when there's enough space or you're able to get it in there. I grab pliers quite often for this, and probably shouldn't, but I do. There's the brass nut. There is actually a locking ring for that nut, but it wasn't doing much good. So let's take that screw out. We'll get that locking washer, locking ring off there, and we'll reinstall it properly when we get it back together and see if it'll hold that nut from moving. Now this rotor will come off here. We want to watch for pieces and parts to fall out from underneath. I don't see anything. I do see another spacer washer that goes between the rotor and the body. Set there. There's quite a bit of dirt out in here also. This is the trigger, the bail release trigger here. See a little bit of corrosion on it. See if we can get that brushed out of there, or if we're going to take it right apart. It is moving freely, so I'm not too concerned. We'll get this all cleaned out. The reason I don't like to take some of these things apart is these little tiny springs can be a real pain to get back in properly. Sometimes I like to go shooting across the room because they are under pressure and you take it apart. And big fingers makes it hard to get those back into place sometime. Let's get the rest of this dirt and gunk out of there. I'm going to try to remove as much of that dirt and old grease and everything as you can. Actually, I do think I'm going to take that trigger apart. That way I can get all the rust out. It's probably rusted up into here also, so I don't want to leave that and have issues later on. Let's see if we can get the spring unhooked. Spring, there we go. Spring come out easily enough. Should probably take this side cover off so I can see where that goes and how it works before I take that out of there. Let's set that screw off to the side, pull this side cover off. Okay, it actually goes all the way up into there, so it'll have to come out through this side. So when we take this bail off, we can get that out. I'm going to finish with the body, then we'll come back to the rotor here. Finish tearing it apart, cleaning it up, and then we can start reassembly. Quite a bit of dirt and debris up into here. Wipe that out as much as I can. Now this locking ring here, you'll notice, solid all the way around down here, but up here has this notch. We want to remember that. Where it goes, this side has a wider side that's facing the open side of the body. This side is facing the closed side, and it is also away from the foot. We want to note that and reinstall it that way, otherwise it will not operate. The reel may not operate properly if that's not installed properly. Let's pull these couple of screws out here. With the screws. Now this pinion gear shaft should just pull out, the bearing come along with it. Bearing does have a little bit of rust on the outside, but it seems to be moving freely. So we'll clean that up and that should be okay. Now there's another washer. This washer goes between the spool and the bearing. I didn't see that when I pulled the rotor off, not the spool, the rotor. Try to get all this old grease off out of the gear teeth here, much of it as we can. We don't want that. That'll dry up over time and get hard and crusty and jam things up. Take my plastic brush and brush it right out of there. Okay. I'm also noticing that this is where the anti-reverse lockout is, the notch there. So this particular reel is not instant anti-reverse. Depending on where the spool is at, this thing is going to rotate anywhere from almost a full turn, or if you're right there, it'll just be a little bit. But yeah, it's got to go all that way to get the reverse locked out. So something to notice. This bearing, let's get this bearing cleaned up and lubricated and let it sit a little bit while I clean up other stuff. Rust is wiping right off that. These are usually made out of stainless steel anyway, or steel that's not. It's actually chrome, not stainless steel. I don't know why I thought that said that. Okay, this side of the bearing is open. You can see the little roller balls in there. I'm gonna put lubrication in that side so it gets right directly in there. There we are. Let that sit a minute. I'm gonna wipe out the body here. I'm not going to take the anti-reverse arm out or the reverse lockout override out. Those are good shape, clean, and moving well, so I'm just going to clean them out and then lubricate. Want to be sure to clean this lower bushing up really well. It don't seem like I need to take that out of the body, so I'm not going to bother. If it was a bearing, I'd take it out and lubricate it, but I'm able to get in there with the Q-tip, clean the grease out of it, and clean it up pretty good. So it's not super nasty in this one here. I've definitely seen a lot worse. Okay, wipe it off a little more here. Not sure why the foot on this one looks like somebody painted the foot black on it. Don't know why that was done, but you can see it's like overspray in areas, so I don't believe that's factory. This reel, that bushing fell out anyway, so that works. I'll just clean it up and put it back in. This reel here was missing the side cap. I'm going to see if I can locate one. I think I may have one of my parts. Let's see if I got one and put it in there. If I do, put this, I'll finish cleaning this side bearing out, or bushing out. I'm going to put it in the case and then lubricate it with a little bit of this grease. That way it's in there and I'm not getting the grease all over my fingers anymore, and I have to. I'll put just a little bit of oil on this reverse dog here. There. I like to put a little bit on this sliding. This is a spring. It's a flat metal sliding spring. I like to put just a little bit of lube there, just because it's a wear point. Any lubrication will help keep it from wearing. I do understand it is a plastic case, but it's metal on plastic. The metal's not going to wear where the plastic is, so I feel it helps. Okay, now we're going to start reassembling here. I'm going to start putting the pinion bearing back in. The open side of that bearing was to the inside. I'll slide that back in. That bearing feels pretty good, so I think it'll be just fine. This set in this orientation here with that opening there toward the closed side of the body. Start our screws. I like to try to start them by hand when I can. Sometimes I can't get my fingers down in there, but that way less chance of cross-threading it. I can feel it if they're going straight or not. And turn it in with my screwdriver here. There we are. Now I had these two copper or brass washers that sat between the rotor and the bearing. These are a keyed washer. They don't need to be keyed, but they are. So they'll go on there. Pinion shaft just like that. Slide them down. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move back to my spool because I want to be able to put my main shaft in, but I want to have my spool on before I do that because of that pin that is right here. That spool is not going to go over top of that. Or I'm sorry, the rotor. So this will go in here and the rotor will be down here. So I need the rotor on before I put this on. I don't want to put all the internal parts together until I'm able to slide that axle shaft in. So let's get this rotor tore apart. I like to remove the bail right off of it if these screws will allow me to. That way I can free up and lubricate this spinning wheel here, the line rate wheel, and then clean stuff up and get it looking better and working better. Okay, that screw is coming loose, so I definitely gonna put a little touch of grease on that when I put it in. That way it won't freeze into that for next time, because that is rusting all the way up. This little piece here, that's a washer piece that goes in between the plastic arm and the roller. That roller is stuck on there, so I'm going to see if I can get it broke free. I'm going to try not to damage it. It is moving, so I think I can get it off there. It is definitely moving. It's not wanting to come off. It is now slowly working off of there. But just a little bit of lube on that will definitely help. So that roller was froze right up. I use, this is Tri-Flow Superior Lubricant. It's got pretty good lubricating properties. It is a penetrating oil, so not the best lubricating properties, but using that, I use PB Blaster. Sometimes I use WD-40. Use whatever I happen to have. They all work about the same. There's maybe some work a little better than others, but I use what I have. And we need to remove this E-clip. This E-clip holds this pin, which holds this side of the bail on. That E-clip is a spring clip, once again, so you got to be careful not to go shooting it across the room when it comes off of there. So I try to usually keep a finger very near it, over it, type of thing, to keep it from going flying when it comes off of there. This can be sometimes a bugger to get out, and they're even better to get in. There's the A-clip. Let's see if this will pull out of here. Work it out. That rust on there sometimes makes them stay in there a little bit, or want to stay in there, I should say. So sometimes you a little bit of penetrating oil on that. Work it a little bit. You don't really force it. Take your time and try to get that out of there. Maybe if I brush it a little bit, the plastic brush here, and get some of that rust freed up. Really like to get that out and clean that up, but I don't want to damage the reel because it will move. There we go. It's pulling out. Don't like to do that because I could have damaged the reel right there, the rotor, but that's how it had to be to get that out of there. You can see that pin's quite rusted, so not made of stainless steel. So I'm going to get these parts cleaned up, and then I'm going to pull that bail release trigger out of there and clean it. Okay, that goes there, and I'm going to get I have these little orifice brushes here. Work really good for going into openings, cleaning them out. They are just plastic, but this is also a plastic spool, so I don't want to use a metal brush really if I don't have to. So it's really cleaned up. Not going to be perfect, but it is cleaned up. I'm going to clean this area here where that roller rides, so that roller will go back on there nicely and rotate. There that is. It's turning nicely. We are going to lubricate that upon reassembly. Okay. Oops. That was onto this side, so I got to remember to put that back on. This bail. Went off camera there for a minute. Kind of hit that arm with a little bit of paint. Want to make it look a little bit better, and that'll help protect it, keep it from being rusted, and well, not rusted because it is aluminum, but keep the corrosion down is what I'm saying. And let that dry a minute. We can reassemble that. So to hit this bale with this. Make it look better and keep it from rusting, corroding, that type of thing anyway. So it's just protecting is all I'm trying to do. Yeah, and make it look better. Why not? There we are. Okay, we'll set that over there. Alright, I'm going to go ahead while that's drying, or tear this other side apart. Has another one of them clips. I'm not sure how that's going to come out. This one actually has the the trigger for the bale. It seems to be pretty stiff too. See if we can get this screw out of here. I can't quite remember what this piece is called. Quick release or quick cast. I forget what they call that right offhand. Let's see if we can get that screw out so we can get it freed up and lubricated. And take my pick and dig most of the rust out of that. I'm not sure if that screw is going to come out. We'll find out. Oh yeah, awesome. That way I can get that screw cleaned up. There is a spring under here I'm seeing. So you can see, okay, there's a hole there and it goes there. Okay, that way, excuse me, that way I understand where it was. That's actually working a little freer with all that stuff off. Let's take this side cover off. We can get into this. Get this tore apart, cleaned up, lubricated. This one seems to be moving pretty good. That pin does not appear to be rusted, but I am going to take it out anyway just so I can lubricate it. The other side was rusted. There's a touch of rust on this one, nothing like the other side, so keep it from getting that bad. That. This does have a spring down in here. I want to be careful of that. I like to try to get this pin here out. There, that way the spring's released. It's not going to go shooting across the room, hopefully. Not sure if that was the best way to do it, but because I'm not sure how this is going to come out, I'm going to take that out. Okay, it is coming out. I'm going to pry it out, lightly pry it out. Not a lot of pressure on it. There we go. And that'll get, as I said, it is rusty down in there, so I'm glad I took that apart. We can get that cleaned up and move even freer than it was. Springs aren't super strong, so every little bit helps, that's for sure. Go through here with one of these orifice brushes and clean that opening out that pin rides in. It is plastic, so it's fairly easy to clean that little bit out. And the spring's got a little bit of stuff on it, so we're going to kind of brush that and get that dirt and everything out of there. Let's put the spring back in place there. Then we'll hook the arm into that and take it over. So see as this pin comes out. Let's clean this one up like we did the other. There's that. Okay. There's that. Okay, now I'm put just a little bit of, this is working as it should. We'll get this a little bit out of here. There's a little weight down in here. I'm not going to bother taking out. It is corrosion on it, so I'm going to try to get that corrosion chipped out of there. I believe that's kind of a balance weight. I'm not 100% sure what it does, to be honest, but I believe it maybe helps balance the rotor, make it a little smoother. And put just a touch of grease, more as a coating, just to keep it from corroding again. There we are. Okay, The spool is all back together. It seems to be working good. I'm going to set that off to the side. Actually, I'm going to assemble that right now. Put that onto the pinion shaft, and I can assemble the rest of this body. And so this, I already have the washers on there. There was 2 of them. So that slides on here. Push that square washer out. That is a keyed washer. It locks the rotor to that pinion shaft. Want to make sure that's properly seated. I'll grab the brass nut here. This is a lock. It was under that screw. That was not doing its job. I don't know if it's because the nut was already backed off. It was improperly placed the last time this was apart, what the deal was, but I should not have been able to get this nut off of here without removing that, but I was able to. Now that feels real good. Okay, put this locking ring back on here, locking washer. We'll put the screw back into it, and that should prevent that nut from backing out. I'll run my Q-tip down through this pinion shaft because that axle shaft that come out of there was pretty dirty, so some gunk could come out. Okay, so now I can put my eccentric gear in. I like to lubricate the point that it rides on, lubricate the back side. I'll set it down into there. I'm going to lubricate the face because of that T-block rides on that pin. Get a little lubrication in them teeth. I forgot to lubricate this pinion bearing, but I can still get to it to do that, so I'm going to do that now just so I don't forget again. Get some grease into there. Don't have to be a real lot, just enough that I like to fill the teeth up. Okay, so we can, this is our T-block. Lubricate this. I did not really pay too close attention what way this went in. I do know how it goes in because that clip rides over, the clip goes up here on the top. So I do know which direction it goes in, but it's always a good idea to pay attention to that so you don't have an issue. I was able to pull that main shaft out with the axle shaft in it, so I'm going to go ahead and put the axle shaft in it right now. Put just a real light coating of the grease on it. Don't need to be a lot because it'll mostly push off when it goes into the pinion shaft anyway if you have too much. There's a flat spot on this that goes up. It'll line up with the flat that's on the T-block. Goes all the way through. There we are. And we put our metal clip in. Hooks and then flips down just like so. We get our screw. Another one of these small screws. It's in a tight place. For these, it does not stick to your magnet or screwdriver. This one it is, so I can get the screw into there. If it does not stick, you can put a little dab of grease on the tip of your screwdriver or the tip of the screw, and it'll stick then. And it'll help aid you get that back into there. It's spinning real nice. Eccentric gear is moving freely. Okay, and I'm going to lubricate this. I fill these teeth with grease. I've already lubricated that bushing down there, but I am going to put a little lubrication here, and there's the gear for that eccentric drive. For that, there we are. Put that, set that. Now this little spring, you can see it to line it up on this one. A lot of times these have a sight window, this one does not. So you can see this one to get it in place. You want it in that opening right there. So you just kind of tilt it and slide it right down into there. And then this one, you cannot see that at all to see if it's working, to know if you got it in there right. But that is such a large groove. Well, you can feel it working. That's how it's supposed to work right there. There it's going in, locked out of reverse. Alright, let me see here. I'll get this other bushing. We'll put that into this outside cover. Snaps in there. Got these two brass washers. These help to properly align the main shaft, or main gear, main shaft on in the bushings. I'm going to put a little bit of lubrication on this. This here is going to also help keep that from getting corroded again. I lubricated the bushing. Now I can slip my side cover on. There we go. And then all three of these screws were the same, so it does not matter which hole I put which one in. Snug these up. They don't have to be over tightened. You don't want to strip out the hole in the case, crack the case, anything like that. Strip the head of the screw. If this was a metal reel, I would be applying just a touch of either grease or oil to those threads so that they don't get corroded right into the body. Sometimes they'll get rusted or corroded right in there, and then you can't get them out. So snug these guys up a little bit. Okay, I believe I can put the the spool back. I'm gonna wipe this gunk out of here. I like to put a little lubrication down into that opening there. That way it lubricates this mechanism here. Use penetrating oil on that. That covers big area. If you see it foaming up, it'll lubricate everything. And a little clip here that the line hook would be hooked into is gone on this one. It got broke off for some time. This could use some new line. That line's pretty nasty looking, but I'm not going fishing today, so I'm not going to worry about it. Clean this up. This will just snap right back on. There is this pin, it has to be lined up in these. Once you get that lined up, it'll snap right in, and there it is. That line is just going to keep fighting me. Okay, now we can get our drag back together. We've already cleaned and lubricated it, so now I'm going to reassemble the drag. There is one more piece I do need to clean up, but I'm going to do that after. Now, let's see here. Let's see if I can grab it with my pliers. That's how I took it out. There is those two eared washers. Alright, there's a couple things here I need to explain. The shape of this matches the shape of the end of the main axle shaft that goes all the way through. So you need to get that lined up, and then you also have these. I may take these drag washers back off, set them on here, put them in there one at a time. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. That way I can get this shaft lined up nicely, and now I can start stacking these in. There's a metal eared washer. That fell right in place. Then my fiber. I've already lubricated these, so they're good. Then I have my keyed washer. There's that. That down in there. Now my fiber washer. I do have a little bit of oil and grease on my hands too, so that'll help lubricate. And now my top one. Okay, that was a eared washer. Now my spring. And then I had these two washers there. Actually, I think them were on, no, them were on the top side, I believe. Get that to stay a minute. I need to clean this piece up. Stop. Clean the corrosion off of this last piece that goes in. And because this piece is corroded, it has corroded, so I am going to coat it a little bit of grease just as a protectant is all I'm doing it for. There. That way it does not get corroded, get frozen in the body. I've had to take these things apart and these I've broken reels trying to get this piece out. Okay, now we thread this back down in. I want to be careful to start it straight. It is very easy to cross thread. There we are. You can actually use the knob to spin that in. Okay. Take the knob back off. Oops, there's a lot of gunk in there, dude. I should have looked on the inside of that knob first. Now we can get our snap ring back in. There, that holds it. Oops, hold on, I'm going to take that back out. I missed the washer. It's even right there and I missed it. Let's take... That's the good thing about the parts tray is I see it right there, and drop that washer down in there, work it down with my pick. There we are. Now I can get the clip back in place. There. Okay, now we can get our knob on here. This is hexed, and the inside of the knob is hexed so it can grip it for turning it, otherwise the drag would just slip. I'm going to put just a little bit of lube on this too, because these screws have a tendency to get frozen too. Don't need a lot, just enough to protect the threads from getting corroded and growing into that aluminum piece. Snug that up. Don't want it to be super tight, but you don't want that coming loose either. Okay. Yeah, the string is fighting me. Okay, that drag is working. Let's tighten it right down and see how it works. Oh yeah. Drag's working real nice now. Before it wasn't very strong at all. Now it seems fairly strong. I like to leave these backed off, keep the pressure off the coil spring, keep the pressure off the drag washers. I think it helps extend their life a little bit. This is a folding handle, so I'm going to lubricate the joint here. Let's see if we can get some of that gunk out of down in there too. There we are. Lubricate this joint. Little lube on the thread. I have had these things season too into the aluminum main gear. This was a left hand retrieve. That's the way I'm going to set it back up. Now this is going to be, if I'm going the right way, this is going to be a reverse thread. Spin the handle on, hold the rotor and snug it up a little bit, not overly tight. Let's see how the Bail release is working. The bail works nicely. The quick trigger is working. The reason that this one here is not an instant reverse is usually, that's weird. Usually this stops at the top right where your thumb is so that you can grab it and do that. This one stops at the bottom for some unknown reason. There's no way to assemble that backwards, so I am a little bit confused on that, but either way it works. Those a lot of times end up failing and not working. This lever breaks off or it just doesn't do that, but that is really working nice. But yeah, these are usually set up so that, because you hold the rod like that, you can just grab that with your finger, flip it, and there you go. You can also, you pick your string up, because your string, let me see it. Your fishing line would be right through there on that roller, and then you'd reach down, grab the string, release it, and then when you go to cast, just like that. It's that simple. Let's get this string fishing line wound back up on here. Now I'll make sure the anti-reverse is working. I didn't snug that handle up very much. Anti-reverse is working. Anti-reverse override works. It's quiet, it's smooth, it's a nice working reel. Get this string back tight around the foot so it'll stop unwinding off the spool. I'll do that, bring this around, flip it over that, and then I'm going to tighten my drag up a little bit. That'll hold this spool from turning and backing off. Oops. Might have went too far. I didn't think I tightened it that quick. There we go. That'll help hold that line so it don't get all tangled on everything. Alright, this one's done. I'm going to see if I can find a replacement cap for that. And this one's pretty much ready to get back on the water. I'm going to do a little more cleanup after I shut the camera off. You guys don't want to watch that. So I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you very much. Please feel free to hit the like and subscribe button. Also hit that notification bell so you can get notified when I put out a new video, so you can watch it if you're interested in this sort of thing. Once again, if there's any particular reel you would like to see serviced, learn how to service your own, definitely leave it in the comments and I will see what I can do, see if I have that reel or if I can find it to service it and show you how it's done. That way you don't tear it apart and get in a bind and not be able to get it back together. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe button.